peace. For in your arms its burden shall be the burden. Wings are to a bird, and a sail is to a ship. Amen. Now at this time, let us welcome Wayne Talcott from Florida via Zoom, as he will be sharing his message. Welcome, Wayne.
Thank you very much. It's always nice to be here. And thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I can tell you, though, to be honest, you'll forget almost everything I'm going to discuss with you here. So please remember this, that in the book of Numbers, God spoke to Balaam through his ass or donkey. And he's been speaking through asses ever since. So if you should choose to speak through you, if God should choose to speak through you, you need not think so much of yourself. And if on meeting someone right away, you recognize what they are, listen to them anyway. So please, regardless of how you see me today, I hope you will listen, even though I don't think you'll remember this for long. I'm going to start with 1 Corinthians. By the grace of God has given me, I laid a foundation as a wise builder, and someone else is building on it. But each one should build with care, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one already laid, which is Jesus Christ. If anyone builds on this foundation using gold, silver, costly stones, wood, hay, or straw, their work will be shown for what it is. This is a core Christian belief. We accept that Jesus spoke the word of God, and as I can best understand it, I think it's a part of my development, and my goal in life as a Christian is to try to live life building a foundation centered on the teachings of Jesus, as reflected in the Bible and other good books. The benefit to this is a life of meaning and an ability to better withstand the hardships that will surely come your way. Without a belief in God, the rest of our good intentions and habits are trivial. Somehow it's important to strive towards something greater than ourselves. Said differently, what is the why in this life without God? You know, we struggle to try and live the best Christian life we can, despite somehow never being quite perfect enough. And we can get too caught up in our work and in the things we want to buy and what we say we believe instead of what we do. Christianity, it seems to me, is more about what we do than what we profess to believe. And without something to aspire to, something to reach higher to, life seems to lose some of its meaning. Why is it so hard? You know, children seem to get it. A friend of mine is a pediatric oncologist, and he once told me this story long ago, and I'm going to repeat it again. Hopefully you haven't heard it. But he said that when children have terminal cancer, young children, they'll often play and ride their tricycles the day before they die with minimal pain and suffering and almost without fear. One story he told me, and he broke into tears when he said it. One young boy told his father the day before he died from cancer that his father shouldn't worry because he would put in a good word for his father when he got to heaven. We, on the other hand, seem to get so caught up in our day-to-day lives and our egos that we lose focus, and as a result, lose our life balance. Without a strong foundation in faith, I think we succumb to fear. We fear the loss of our things, the loss of our youth, the health of our children. We build our foundation on egotism, wealth, and a false sense of importance. Matthew chapter 7 says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against the house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock." All of you have heard this before. "But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, and it fell with a great crash. A foundation based on false security, like modern medicine, my doctor will somehow take care of all my maladies. This kind of thinking makes you vulnerable to an insecurity that can leave you living in worry and fear. You know, we build that foundation one stone at a time. So how do you build a Christian foundation? Well, again, Matthew gives us a clue in his statements about eye for an eye. Jesus says, you have heard it said that an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, don't resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you or take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to them who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Now, there's many ways to interpret this, but basically the way we understand through our Sunday school class, that this is an act of disobedience. So the idea is you're just a slave and you have no power. If somebody slaps you on one side of your face and you hit them, you'll be crucified or worse. So what Jesus is saying is show them you're not afraid by turning the other cheek. Say, hit me again. That's the point of this particular lesson. Stand up to violence and stand up to inequity by challenging it. And of course, in Matthew, the most important laws to think about as you think about building a foundation on faith, again, you've heard many times, but can never hear it enough. Jesus was asked, what are the most important commandments? And you all can repeat this almost with me. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. But the second one is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. You know, we're all the same in the eyes of God, brothers and sisters, a part of one humankind. The foundation that we build in our lives is as critical as the foundation of any structure, like our home. When a builder cuts corners on the foundation, the final home is unstable and at greater risk of disasters. And the same is true of our lives. All that we do, all that we say is rooted in the foundation of our beliefs and our actions. Jesus is calling you to be wise about that foundation and to examine your beliefs and actions against the truth of his word, building one stone at a time. Our choices, it turns out, really matter. We choose every day how we're going to react to various situations. And each time we act, we impact the integrity of that foundation, one way or the other. A good place to start is a golden rule. You know, it's often thought that the origination of the golden rule was Christianity. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Again, Matthew. But actually, some version of the golden rule exists many years before Christianity. The earliest form of the golden rule in religion dates almost 600 years before Christ. Buddhism documents dating from the 6th century BCE include the quote, hurt not others in ways that you yourself would not find hurtful. We're capable of so much if we only let ourselves respond. I want to tell a story about when I was stationed at Balad. It was a trauma center, and we had young men coming in who had been severely injured. It was a trauma center, not a hospital. So they had serious injuries. We would stabilize them in Balad and then send them to Germany for more care. Almost everybody got sent, but occasionally we had someone who was so injured they wouldn't survive the plane trip to Germany. So one young man had come in and he had burns over 75% of his body, which is fatal. He was frightened in a foreign place, almost as if he knew his young life was about to end. The nurses and technicians just gathered around him. And that evening, they sung to him and they prayed out loud together with him as he wanted. He quieted and seemed to feel the loving kindness that the staff felt for him. That night, he quietly died. At the end of our deployment, a rugged chief master sergeant who was a prior special forces medic and who enjoyed playing the rock song, "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor," stood up in front of our staff with tears flowing from his eyes. And he told how meaningful it was to him to help pray and comfort that young man before he died. I think it changed his life. We had a rule in Balad that no one died alone, and nobody had to enforce it. Human suffering was responded to with a kind of compassion and care seldom seen anywhere. The blessing from this act went both ways. Loving our brothers and sisters as ourselves is a foundation to a Christian life, and showing compassion strengthens us in ways that nothing else does. I'm so sure of this, and yet, I lose my way regularly. Life will bring us challenges. The rain will come down, the rivers will rise, and the winds will blow. How will your house stand up to the storm? To act in accordance with our Christian basic teachings, that is what a good life is all about, or at least a life of well-being and peace. It includes loving and being loved, accepting and appreciating life and our place in it. Perhaps it's my aging that's changed my attitude, but I've come to realize that the days I have available to me are precious. For me, every day now, I think about my inevitable death. Not in a morbid or fearful way, but simply to remind myself that every day is another gift. This was a Stoic exercise called memento mori. And as a gift, you can't help but feel you need to be useful. Paul talks about that in Romans chapter 5. Sometimes I worry that too many of us devalue our time. We succumb to fallacious narratives about the world is falling apart around our ears and that people no longer need a church or God. If you believe this, it's certainly understandable. Our media delight in filling us with stories of tragedy after tragedy. They don't necessarily give us false news, they just give us certain news. It's easy to lose hope and think you don't matter. So what can you do about global warming, starvation, and other human maladies? It just all seems too big and too awful. Despite what you hear on CNN, NPR, or Fox News, it turns out the world is a pretty hopeful place. And the Christian message is not only true, but it's still providing support to those in need. There was a New York Times article about a church that grows in Brooklyn, written by the son of the minister of that church, who was from China. He had been educated in America and didn't return to China, but started a church in Brooklyn. His parents grew up amid the terror of the Cultural Revolution, where Christians were forced to meet in secret and hid their Bibles out of fear of being the victim of a mob-fueled condemnation of wrongdoing. The son who writes this article said it was not entirely different than the cancel culture and student shutdowns we have in the United States. His parents started a church in Brooklyn's Sunset Park neighborhood. It was a church and a community center. He pointed out, he said, I witnessed how important churches are to maintaining a community's civil life, something that even prominent atheist intellectuals, both on the left and right, agree on. Today, 19 years later, the congregation is composed mostly of young faces, and they perform lots of baptisms and weddings. He says, the author of the article, if I had never strayed from Sunset Park and had no access to the internet, I wouldn't have guessed that Christianity is supposedly in decline, because Christianity is thriving if you know where to look. When I look around my neighborhood, he said, a poor area with minimal social influence, I see happiness beaming from people's faces on Sunday mornings. The author's father became a citizen of the United States, and when he was asked how the US and China differ, he said, in China, the people are not free to hear the word, but they still are hungry for it. In America, they are free to hear the word, yet they choose not to accept it. It is here that we see the power of faith in action, the power of foundational beliefs. We are called to act to help those suffering. Oh, and if you thought actions don't help, that nothing you can do will make a difference, listen to this story by Nicholas Christophas, in the New York Times writer. Nicholas wrote an article about Freetown, Sierra Leone, and he starts his article with, this may be the most important thing happening in the world today. He states, one of the misimpressions people have about the world is that it's going to hell. Perhaps that's because humanity's great triumph over the last half century, huge reductions in poverty, disease, and early death, goes largely unacknowledged. One of the worst things that can happen to anyone is to lose a child, he writes. We now live in a transformational era where 96% of the world's children now survive until adulthood. But one reason the world doesn't do more to help poor countries is exhaustion. People have a sense that nothing works. And he points out, I fear this misperception is driven partly by journalists like me and by aid workers and advocates and other bleeding hearts. 87% of people responding to a survey in 1987 thought that poverty is hopeless and stayed the same or had worsened. While in fact, the world's population living in extreme poverty has plunged from 38% in 1990 to about 8% today. We are privileged to live in an age of miracles, and it's biblical. The blind see with cataract surgeries, the lame walk from club foot correction, age-old maladies like leprosy, polio, fistula, guinea worm, and river blindness are receding. And this progress is as authentic as all the perils that make the headlines. Don't fear. Reach out in faith. We are far from perfect, but humanity, as imperfect as we are, have progressed and made lives better for literally billions of people on the planet. Your actions might be very small. A smile instead of looking away, donating to the right charity, volunteering, and the list goes on. Each act of loving kindness brings you closer to God. One more brick in the foundation. Treating your neighbors as you'd like to be treated in the name of God, one stone at a time. In the face of not knowing, seeing, touching, or in other words, without objective proof, we are left with a foundation of faith that is best when strong. Admiral James Stockdale stated, the test of a future's leader's merit may well not lie in perseverance when the light at the end of the tunnel is expected, but rather in their persistence and continued performance of duty when there is no possibility that the light will ever show up. In Hebrews, it says, faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain of what we don't see. It really is about reaching out in faith. We are so blessed to have the life we have, the freedom to choose how we will live each and every day, even this day. And knowing this, how can we treat another day as anything but a gift? Thank you.